influence new schools of thought. I created this competition with the memory of myself as a kid entering a local speech competition and giving my very first speech about animal rights. I still have that speech memorized, and I still believe everything I said that day. Someone who heard that speech years later told me that that speech was the reason they became vegetarian and stayed vegetarian all these years. Words have meaning, and these students have the opportunity today to create change with their words, and I think they will do just that. My name is Vraedenberg, and I am the president of the Carlsbad Equality Coalition, and I had the vision of bringing our community together to hear our future leaders' speeches about equity and justice. I am so excited for you all today to hear their voices and let yourself be impacted here today by what they have to say. I would like to introduce Hannah Summerhill, the Vice President of the CEC and co-founder of Kinswoman, an anti-racist podcast platform, who will be guiding today's event.
Thank you, everybody. Happy Saturday. As Ali said, I'm Hannah Summerhill, the co-VP of the Carlsbad Equality Coalition. My co-VP is actually sitting right here, Brandon. Say hi to Brandon. I'm so honored to be here today, and thank you all for coming. These students are incredible, and I cannot wait for you to hear their speeches. They brought me to tears and just made me feel so inspired when I was watching them. It also gave me hope that the future of Carlsbad and our society will be a more equitable and safe one. I know that these are not easy conversations to have, and you may find yourself getting uncomfortable as you watch these speeches, but it's the hard dialogues that lead to progress. And as you watch these students, I ask yourself, what does equity and justice mean to you? And what's one small action that you can take to embody these values? The students will be judged on their connection to equity and justice, their delivery, their supporting material, their clear argument and thesis, and their understanding of the prompt, what does equity and justice mean to me? The first place winner will earn a $500 scholarship, second place a $200 scholarship, and the other participants will walk away with a $100 scholarship because we believe in honoring their commitment today, and there are no losers here. Yes. Woo. And thank you so much to Ali for her fundraising efforts so that we could do this for you. Okay. Yes. Woo. Now let me introduce our amazing judges. Reverend Madison Shockley has been the pastor at Pilgrim Church, where we are today, since 2004. He serves on the Board of Trustees of the Union Theological Seminary and the Board of Directors at Compassion and Choices. He holds a Master's of Divinity from Union Theological Seminary in New York City. Amazing. Yusef Miller is a Navy veteran that served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He retired after 24 years of service in 2011. Thank you for your service. And then he dedicated his time to social justice. He's a board member at his mosque, the founder of Mosques Against Trafficking, MAT, the Muslim effort in the fight against sex and labor trafficking, the founder of Pink Crescent, the Muslim effort to spread breast cancer awareness, and the founder of Clergy for the Coastline, an interfaith climate environmental advocacy group, as well as the founder of the Racial Justice Coalition, RJC, an anti-police brutality organization that lobbies for legislation to hold law enforcement officers accountable for illegal activities. Thank you, Yusef. And lastly, our third judge is Ali Vraedenberg, who happens to be celebrating her birthday today. So thank you, Ali. What an amazing way to mark this new year for you. And she is the president of the CEC. All right, now let's introduce our first speaker, Liliana Fake. Welcome, Liliana.
Hi. Hi, my name is Liliana Fake, and I am 16, and I'm a junior at Sage Creek High School. Dictionary definition of equity and justice. Human definition of equity and justice. We scream for equity, we scream for justice, but honestly, it's hard to question the policy of trust me versus trust us. We struggle to find true equity and true justice because, well, they aren't in our society. We're scared of the variety of the world. They seem like values that are characteristic of a utopia. They should instead be here right now. If we want the world to be a utopia, why do we have a phobia of equity, a phobia of justice, a phobia of people different from us? Wow. We live in fear of ourselves. Boys and girls, men and women, whoever you are, every color, every size, every person. People walking the streets, searching for something to eat, a place to stay. We shun those who need our help, and we shun those who offer it. We look away out of pity and pride, too caught up in our own circumstances, so we say, well, I tried. Empathy and equity go hand in hand. Without one, there is no other. And right now, that's where we stand. Equity to me, so simple yet somehow so hard, and we keep ignoring the key. You shouldn't have to be born rich, born a different color, a different sex, in a different place to make it further in this world than another. So many steps to take, but without change, lack of empathy means lack of equity. How could I want that as a legacy? Equity right now means helping that homeless person off the streets, clothes and shelter. But everything's off kilter. That person's back and there's thousands more. So what are we really fighting for? Right now, every student should have the right to the support they require. Parents shouldn't have to argue and fight for something that will raise everyone higher. Right now, people should receive the care they need. It shouldn't have to depend on money and greed. Life-saving surgery, medication against threat shouldn't be something that puts a person in debt. Right now, women should decide what to do. We should get to choose what happens to our body, our future. Why is it up to men in power to decide that my hands are tied? Justice to me. One looking to decide your fate. So very hard to navigate a world where the line between right and wrong is blurred and furled. Justice right now means a black man freed from prison for false crime and a sentence stemmed from greed and prejudice. His family welcomes him home, and society is righted a wrong. Justice right now means a family allowed to cross the border, to reach their mother who's been alone, but everything's out of order, working hard yet still treated with disregard, and society is righted a wrong. Is this really something that we're proud to call our own? Is this truly justice? Justice to me would be when none of that happens, when a wrong man isn't forced to serve a sentence meant for another, when a family isn't forced away from their mother. What happened to all of us being brothers? Why are there so many others? A label meant to define you from me, draw the line in the sand so they know where they stand. In school, I learned about equity and justice, but they failed to instruct us that adults tend to overcomplicate. Barriers were created, imaginary but firm, all here to stay for the very long term, made to silence those that wish to disrupt, those that can look past the glares, the stares into your soul as you stand in silence and wonder. Do I dare? Do you stand for a cause? Do I stand for a cause? Because right now, I'm told, you're told, fit in that square. They get 20, they get 10, the system is all out of whack, and again and again and again. He was running at night, arrested, running in his own neighborhood. She was driving her kids, arrested. They were on their way to school. They want love, attacked. They were born to be different. She's not ready for that kind of change. She has other plans, attacked. A brutal exchange because she knew her own body and mind. Children learning at school, shot. And somehow, it's now an unspoken rule. She was sleeping in her own house, in her own bed, shot by the people who were supposed to protect. And now she's dead. Push and pull, tug and prod, they tell me to pick a side. Supposedly right or wrong, pick a side you feel you belong on. Pick a side in the fight for humanity. Why must we fight for our own humanity? Equity to me, justice to me, freedom of choice, options, support, freedom to live life fully and to have a voice. But society's stuck in a routine. We can't wait another moment, so stand for the movement. Stand for change. If I fight for nothing, nothing will happen. All remains the same. Because what is trying without a cause was a cause without trying. Right now, we need to stand our ground. It's up to all of us now.
Thank you so much, Liliana. What a beautiful way to kick us off. Our next speaker is Danielle D., an 8th grader at Aviara Oaks Middle School. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Danielle D. I'm 13 years old and I'm currently an 8th grader at Aviara Oaks Middle School. Every week, I walk into the robotics room at my school and I wish I could say that I see as many girls as boys there. Instead, I see that girls only make up about 15% of those in tech-related roles. And when this gender disparity is balanced, to me, that would portray a true, equitable, and just world. A world where everyone can pursue their passions because they have equal opportunities and equal resources. And even though this is not yet the case, this dream of our ancestors is now within reach. Historically, women have been denied the right to an education. According to Harvard Graduate School, places like ancient China only allowed girls to be educated in social roles and correct behavior. But in the 19th century, women were finally allowed into universities. And we have endured and burst through barriers, so much so that the National Center for Education Statistics found that females made up 60% of all college enrollments in the 2020 to 21 academic year. This proves to us that when we are given the opportunities and the tools necessary, we can be successful. But despite these gains, our world is still hindered by past and current injustices against girls. This limits our ability to push the boundaries of our world by creating an imbalance in gender in our STEM workforce. How would you feel as a rising female engineer, knowing that the United States Census Bureau affirms that 85% of the industry is men? I feel like I don't fit in. And the causes are simple. Women are facing sexism and discrimination in the workforce, inequality that stems from past inequitable treatment. We're doubted for our commitment and our capabilities, and stereotyped because we spend double the time as men doing unpaid domestic work like housekeeping. We feel and are seen as outsiders because we are underrepresented, leaving the few in these positions isolated. Furthermore, females assigned responsibilities, salaries, and promotions differ from men, even when they hold the same position. Young women are losing confidence, finding themselves underestimated and unsupported, and lacking the role models to inspire them. As reported by the American Association of University Women, only 21% of undergraduate engineering students are females. What's more, women play a crucial part in our workforce. I want to see our world filled with diversity so that we can prevent future biases in these workplaces, improve the economic security of women, and help bridge the gender pay gap. We need diversity to bring fresh perspectives and ideas to solve our world's greatest challenges. So how can we bring equity and justice to this? We need to target and draw out girls by creating extracurricular programs exclusive to females from a very young age, where they are inspired by role models and led by mentors, where they are given the guidance they need to be successful and introduced to career paths in the fields of STEM. Programs where girls are exposed to different enterprises with hands-on workshops to learn to code, use tools, and work through problems. Moreover, we can develop a growth mindset within our students, expressing how performance is improved by practice rather than innate ability. This teaches girls that by working hard, they can be successful, no matter the sexism and stereotypes. And most importantly, we need to change the way the world views women in STEM. We need to advocate for the capabilities of women, especially to the parents, educators, and employers that have an impact on every girl's life. We need to break through the discrimination in our world and in our industries by creating gender-neutral hiring policies and flexible working arrangements to promote a healthy work-life balance. Everything in consideration, allocating girls the opportunity to build a lifelong passion in STEM is giving STEM and the world the gift of girls. I want the world to have the gift of new ideas, perspectives, and qualities to solve our world's most critical problems. Because when we give females the tools and the means necessary to be successful, we are creating a brighter future for all of us. And to achieve this, we must balance the gender disparity in our STEM industries. We must encourage and promote our girls into STEM and see to it that they are respected, included, and welcomed. The world I want to see and the world we owe to the girls and to everyone is a place where, as Hillary Clinton said, when there are no ceilings, the sky's the limit. Where I can walk into a robotics room and be greeted by half women and later transition into an engineering career where not 15%, but 50% of the industry are women. Where our world is just and equal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Our next speaker is August Endow. He is a junior at Sage Creek High School. Come on up.
Good afternoon. Across the world, there are courtrooms and government buildings that are decorated with the image of Lady Justice. Among the pillars that protect society, the Roman goddess of justice embodies all the marvelous cardinal details of the idea of justice. A woman with a considerate set of scales, marking the weighing of evidence, a formidable blade indicating the enforcement of justice, and the reverent blindfold, representing the impartiality of the law. Fun fact, she never actually had a blindfold until the 16th century. The blindfold today is interpreted as blind fairness, a judgment absent of prejudice by way of wealth, power, race, or sex. Although its origin is shrouded in mystery, some historians will actually argue the blindfold that hid the eyes of justice was originally added to symbolize the ignorance and the abuse of law. Today I'm going to talk about the deepest conviction I hold for the United States of America, because today I find myself in a world built for the rich and not the rest. Because I live in the richest country in the world, where a man stands just down the street from my neighborhood with a cardboard sign that reads, "Former veteran," and "Please help." I listen to the news every morning, read the breaking news emails in my inbox several times a day. I recently joined an activist organization, the Democratic Socialists of America. And what I have come to realize is that Lady Justice fails to see what I and many others do. Fortune reports that the top 0.1% of households are currently hoarding $12 trillion. Meanwhile, CNBC reports that the average American is $90,460 in debt from the price of things that everyone deserves: education, healthcare, housing. This certainly isn't justice to me, but what is Lady Justice seeing? The ideas of justice and the image of Lady Justice have prevailed over time, but it hasn't gotten everything right. In my eyes, I see a different path for the future of our nation and the course of justice as we know it. Ancient Greek philosopher Plato, credited with coming up with the idea of justice, once said, "The worst form of justice is pretend justice." So, I think we should stop pretending we live in a world of justice. When our systems work better for the rich who are actually guilty than the poor who often have no control over their circumstances. Some get away with crimes, dodging their responsibilities to humanity because Lady Justice has her blindfold. She's not blind to wealth and power, she's only blind to their crimes. Just to paint the picture, CNBC reports that in 2018, Amazon paid $0 in federal income tax and was given a $129 million tax rebate. The American Bar Association calculated that about 500,000 will spend the night behind bars because they couldn't afford bail. They commit minor offenses or none at all and are kept in prison, often pressured to make a plea deal so our prison system can remove their natural rights and destroy their lives. Executing justice is simply getting it right and righting these wrongs. To me, justice would mean ending systematic discrimination against Black people in the justice, medical, and education system, which traps them in cycles of poverty and gives them unfair sentencing, trials, and justice. It would mean instead of hiding the horrific abuse, assault, murder, and tragedy at our border with Latin America, we treat humans like they deserve to be treated. An eye for an eye won't cut it, and there is so much that can be done to seal the wounds of history as the day of the past. However, wounds open and they leave scars. Slavery and segregation, which still taint the world we live in. Areas with a history of redlining, which is a Jim Crow-era policy of racial segregation, are still dominated by the minorities who continue to be trapped by poverty. The rich profit off the violent carceral system and militarized police. The Prison Policy Initiative estimates that 3 companies made $4 billion in revenue from mass incarceration and immigration detention in the past year. So, they corrupt our government, control our laws, and prolong the conditions that disproportionately terrorize, incarcerate, exploit, and displace communities of color. These are the scars that will extend the injustices of our past beyond their origin and into the present. And that's where equity enters the equation. To heal these scars for a blank slate and a better future. Equity is justice that recognizes the scars of history and accounts for it, rather than choosing to ignore it. It's correcting deficiencies that prevent those plagued by injustice from overcoming the hurdles that history has created. It's finding resources and providing assistance to the vulnerable populations through the hurdles of justice systems, issues with bail or representation, or through the hurdles of poverty when they have no home to go, when the police hide them in the alleyways of society and the employers refuse to hire them. And it's funding the institutions that make up a decent life. This sort of help is what can prevent the sinkhole of injustice from consuming generation after generation. It ensures that growing up with injustice doesn't mean being eternally trapped by it. True justice, justice where every person can truly succeed, requires reparations and assistance to those who have met the blind eye of Lady Justice. I don't believe justice and equity are concepts completely realized in the American lexicon, which is why correcting the disadvantages out of one's control, pursuing the deepest convictions of our nation, and getting rid of the blindfold once and for all is what means everything to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Augustin. We are off to such a powerful start. We'll move this along. Our next speaker is Lauren Park, a junior at Carlsbad High School.
Hello, my name is Lauren Park. I am 16 years old and a junior at Carlsbad. The Pledge of Allegiance's final words are with liberty and justice for all. It is said that the final words of any speech or poem are the most memorable. In America, there is a clear polarization over whether the ideal for justice for all is truly achieved within our system. But in many ways, that is the beauty of democracy, with both sides deciphering the relationship between justice and equity differently. A primary reason why there is a debate in the first place is the setting in which the Pledge of Allegiance was written in 1892, when the line of "with liberty and justice for all" was actually written only for male Americans. All could be seen as a word that represented only those who could vote, own property, and pursue higher education. And for that time period, it was certainly not for women. March Madness, aka NCAA Division I basketball tournament, exposed the vast disparity in the treatment between men and women. The sheer disparity between the weight rooms and food were highlighted by a viral TikTok video by Sedona Prince, a player from U Oregon. The video showed how women have a sparsity of equipment compared to the plethora that the men had. To be exact, there was one singular stack of weights for women, while the men basically had a whole gym at their disposal. The lack of equality was clearly displayed with food as well. Women were given meals that were not suitable for athletes, while men enjoyed luxurious buffets. The irony was that these facts emerged the same month that we're in right now, Women's History Month. This became a wake-up call, showing how severe and blatant this issue is. Recognition is long overdue, especially considering the more subtle areas of this issue. For example, women's golf season is in the fall when it is cold and windy, simply not as comfortable as the men's season that's in the spring. These subtle slights don't cause the same outrage that March Madness did, but devalue women nonetheless. The most important disparity that is often overlooked due to the taboo surrounding it is what I like to refer to as the devil's waterfalls. Female swimmers have the monthly obligation to take care of their menstruation complications. My reputation of helping out my fellow female swimmers gifted me the nickname the period doctor. However, the taboo, shame, lack of empathy, and disrespect from our male peers were experiences I will never forget. It wasn't until the social media firestorm that the NCAA decided to upgrade weight rooms, and even Stephen Curry tweeted out, "Wow, come on now, y'all trippin'." His tweet motivated and encouraged men to also support the notion that men and women should be treated equally. This type of energy shows to society that it is possible to eliminate subtle gender injustices and promote equality through equity, which can be defined as fair and impartial to all, even if those resources vary from person to person. The word fair can also be found in the definition of justice. There is the connection. So far, I've been speaking about equality because of this primary basis I will lay down. Equity to me is the pathway to achieving true equality within our system that certainly lacks it. Achieving equality achieves fairness that is included within justice, the very word that is written in the last few lines of our own pledge. These two values, equality and equity, are interrelated, as justice or fairness cannot function if either one is missing. Equity and justice to me is men's understanding of women's pain when they're going through their cycle and not devaluing them. Equity and justice to me is not only women, but men utilizing their privilege to lift up the suppressed voices in concern for equality. The resource that varies person to person is men's privilege that can be utilized to lift women. That is equity. The Pledge of Allegiance encourages America to achieve justice for all. However, modern society confirms that within the status quo, there is injustice lying within the lines. Whenever we as a nation recite this pledge, there is room to question whether or not we are merely reinforcing the bias that was brought with the past. If we are working towards a contemporary definition of all, we must include a definition that includes women. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the former Supreme Court Justice who relentlessly fought for women's equality, once said, "Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will allow other people to join you." Utilizing the connection between equity and justice is what brings about innovation and incentivizes a reversal of the injustice that lies within the system. Deciphering and strengthening that connection is what will truly achieve liberty and justice for all in today's society. Failing to do so will only fuel the polarization that is preventing true gender equality from occurring through equity. It is not men versus women. It is men and women working together as equals to make sure it's truly liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Our next speaker is Victoria Hayes. She's a junior at Sage Creek High School.
Good afternoon. I'm Victoria Hayes, and I'm a 16-year-old junior at Sage Creek High School. We hear the words equity and justice, and we think of equal rights and privileges for all. And while this is true, these two words mean so much more. They are the ability to be comfortable in whoever you are, wherever you are. A girl assigned to a table with all boys and being able to answer her teacher's questions without a fear of being judged for having lesser thoughts than her male counterparts. A gay, transgender man not being questioned on apps like Tinder for why he would transition yet still be into men. An Indian man not being mocked for his accent at his profession. These are all prime examples of equity and justice that we should strive for. As I'm sure you're well aware, we are far from this perfect land of equity here in America. I still hear sexist jokes and listen to friends share moments of vulnerability when a classmate made fun of their ethnic lunch. And the worst part about how far from justice we are is that some aren't willing to admit how deep we are in this hole of discrimination. When you're at a privileged point where you are sheltered from feeling this lack of human respect, it can be hard to perceive how much worse it is for others. Blissful ignorance is a sweet poison. It threatens others' comfortable existence daily. There is no way to break from this ignorance without being willing to learn from mistakes and make changes to everyday life. For me, being the push for equity and justice is so important, especially from such a privileged life. I'm not going to stand here and deny that I have sipped from the poison of blissful ignorance. I am sure I have encountered many ableist, racist, or xenophobic encounters and not have known better than to speak up. It is key for me to accept that truth and be open about it. Once one is able to see their ignorance, they can truly learn from it. But one's push does not stop here. Taking time to educate oneself can help make the changes we need in order to make change in this country. This could be watching a Black history documentary and discovering the roots of injustice, or researching how to be an ally to the LGBTQ community of America. It has been important for me to put in the time to research how I can support the push against injustice and enact changes to my everyday life. Something I am still working on is fighting my own fight against sexism. It has been hard for me to not invalidate my own struggles as a female by comparing it to the struggles of other injustices. While there might be much less forms of sexism, I do have discrimination as a woman. For as long as I can remember, I was always scared to speak to boys intended to be closer to girls, which is not out of the ordinary. But the strange thing is, I got the strangest sense of enjoyment from befriending a boy. I felt accomplished and loved. Why did I not get the same feeling from befriending another girl? I get similar feelings now. I have a reoccurring experience of joining a group of boys and going completely silent unless being specifically spoken to. In the worst of these experiences, I am the center of a sexist joke about how women can't drive or I'm sour because I'm on my period. As I've grown to hate these experiences, I've grown to speak against them. I find a sense of pride in correcting a male friend who says something sexist, or encouraging a friend to apply to that fully male-run store. That same pride comes from telling a member of an older generation not to make that dumb racist joke anymore. So what is equity and justice to me? It is learning how to fight for not only my own comfort, but the comfort of other minorities in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I hope you're all enjoying these speeches as much as I am. Our next speaker is Varun Venkatesh. He is a sophomore at Carlsbad High School. Welcome, Varun.
Hi, everybody. My name is Varun Venkatesh. I'm 15 years old, and I'm a sophomore at Carlsbad High School. I'm a brown man who has lived my entire life here in the United States. I know what it is like to feel the sting of discrimination. I grew up around a lot of white people. In elementary school, I remember being told that I was one of the quote-unquote good ones. I was different. This backhanded comment was meant to comfort me, but obviously it did quite the opposite. And I thought that things would change. It didn't. As I grew even older, I observed that my brother, a college student at the same high school that I attend now, experienced discrimination through every single door that he opened. He was constantly pelted with racist comments, being titled anything from just another brown boy to just another terrorist. It was as if injustice and inequity was just a normal part of a colored person's life here in America. But what does justice and equity even mean? According to Google, justice is simply defined as fair behavior and treatment, and equity, the quality of being fair. However, to me, both terms mean more than just that simple definition that we find on Google. So, today in the speech, I will first illustrate some examples of injustice and inequity, then summarize the lack of true equity and justice in our community, before finally revealing what I think is the true meaning to those two terms. Racism is the perfect example of something that is completely contrary to both equity and justice. In our education system, where we are taught life lessons and values, like to treat people the way that you want to be treated, oppression exists. Black students are suspended and expelled 3 times more often than white students. And suspensions and expulsions eventually convince many students to drop out, which explains why a disproportionate number of those leaving schools are African American, Latino, or Native American. The prejudiced treatment of our students takes away from their education, a human right that the United States was founded on. Let's be clear. Systemic racism is a corrosive and widespread problem in our society, and we all need to do a better job of confronting it. But action must be taken against the unjust and unequal treatment of our students, now, before it's too late. In addition, racial discrimination is a key part of the lack of legal justice for our country's colored constituents. In fact, Black Americans are incarcerated in prisons at 5 times the rate of white Americans. In 12 of our states, more than half the prison population is Black. Roughly 7 in 10 non-white Americans say that they have personally experienced discrimination or been treated unfairly because of their race or their ethnicity. In our country's current legal system, we don't provide necessary justice to everyone who needs it. It's always been stated, America was built on values that need to be protected. Even the Constitution encourages and promotes equal justice to all of its citizens. But then why aren't we seeing the words on the paper that our country runs on? Justice, equity, equality. In our everyday lives. It's our job as a society to work together, united, once and for all, to provide justice and to provide equity to everyone. From my perspective, equity represents the idea that every individual should have an equal opportunity to make the most of their lives and their talents. And justice illustrates the standard that there should be a fair and equal administration of the law, without corruption, without greed, without prejudice, or without favor. Malcolm X so eloquently once said, "Human rights, respect as human beings, that's what the American masses want. That's the true problem. We all want to live in an open, free society where we all can walk with our heads up, like men and like women. And that is what equity and justice truly means." Growing up in this country, my experience with everyday racism opened up my eyes. I now see the horrors of injustice and inequity, not only in my life, but all around me, all around us. I couldn't say it better than the great and illustrious Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice and inequity anywhere is a threat to justice and equity everywhere. It is not possible to be in favor of justice and equity for some people and not be in favor of justice and equity for all people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Varun. Our next speaker is Al Sutherland. They are a senior at Carlsbad High School. Welcome, Al.
Right. I'd like to thank the Carlsbad Equality Coalition for this opportunity. My name is Al Sutherland, and I'm an 18-year-old senior from Carlsbad High School. 12 years ago, I was a bouncy little 5-year-old kid sitting on the floor of Mrs. Parrish's kindergarten classroom. The first day of the rest of my life, impressionable, naive, and eager to learn. While I was put there to learn how to spell, count, and tie my shoes, I learned a very, very important thing very first: the golden rule. Our golden rule goes as follows: treat others how you want to be treated. At the time, I thought this was a no-brainer, like never run with scissors or don't eat glue. However, as I grew older, I learned that this golden rule is the single most important thing taught to the younger generation. To treat others how you want to be treated is to uphold the qualities of equity and justice. In this speech, I plan to examine both equity and justice, their meanings and their implications on our society. First off, equity is defined as the quality of being fair or impartial, and justice is defined as righteousness, equitableness, or moral righteousness, both by dictionary.com. However, these both definitions really mean the same thing, when in reality, the two words are very, very different. Let's take equity first. To me, equity isn't just fairness, but it is ensuring that everyone has equal opportunities. This being that, of course, equal opportunities does not refer to same opportunities, but rather equally accessible opportunities. Equity should be highly valued in all environments, but unfortunately, it is often replaced with same opportunities. Same opportunities is equality, but equal opportunities is equity. Giving all students the same staircase to access their classrooms may be equality, but what is equality to the wheelchair user stuck at the bottom? The SAT is supposedly an objective, equal measure of intelligence required by many universities across the United States. But what about the low-income students that cannot afford the time, energy, or money required of them to take the test? Fortunately, steps are being made towards true equality in these situations. Elevators and ramps are becoming more commonplace, and many universities have opted to go standardized test optional rather than test mandatory. Continuing on to justice, justice is action-based, whereas equity is merely a concept. Justice is ensuring equity for all members of a community. It is justice that ensures that wheelchair users have accessible surroundings and that low-income students are able to apply to university. Justice should be the main priority in all environments in order to grant everyone the natural rights and respect that they deserve. By valuing and ensuring equity, one upholds justice. Unfortunately, the pure ideas of equity and justice are hard to come by in today's era. I, as well as countless peers, have faced inequity and injustice as a part of our high school experience. What happens to equity when my feminine presenting peers and I are marked down during speech and debate competitions for being too aggressive? What happens to justice for my friends who have had to watch other students make a mockery out of their cultures for a Halloween costume? I've been made fun of for my colorful hair, for being vegan, and for the pronouns I use. But however, the harassment that I have faced is nowhere near the level of malice that my dear friends have had to face due to the colors of their skin. Equality and justice, equity and justice mean to me that above all else, my peers and my friends never have to go through what they have dealt with ever again. Nobody should be hurt by who they are. Today, we've examined the definitions of equity and justice, placed them in real-world situations, and seen just how these ideas play out in our society. While many of today's youth are being hurt by inequity and injustice, groups like the Carlsbad Equality Coalition are fighting for change to create a more equitable, just world through promoting justice. As my peers and I become more aware of our current society's issues, I truly believe that a more equitable, just world is in our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Thank you so much. Okay, we are at our last speaker. I'd like to welcome Daniela Jacobian, a sophomore at La Costa Canyon High School, to the stage.
Hi, my name is Daniela Jacobian. I'm 15 years old, and I'm a 10th grader at La Costa Canyon High School. Before I begin my speech, I'd just like to say thank you to Ali and Hannah for putting together this speech competition. I think it's wonderful to create this platform where students can speak up about such important topics. And I hope you all enjoy my speech. Okay. Where are you from? No, like, where are you really from? Like, where were you born? Is English your second language? Many of us have probably encountered questions like these at some point, whether we were the ones asking them or the ones being asked. Although questions like these sound like they're simply out of curiosity, they're actually considered to be microaggressions, which are defined by Merriam-Webster as unintentional and indirect discrimination against members of a marginalized group. When we envision justice and equity, it is about ensuring we all feel like we belong in our community, regardless of these little comments made to us. It is about understanding the difference between belonging and fitting in. One way to look at microaggressions is by comparing them to mosquito bites. You see, a mosquito bite here and there won't do much harm, but imagine getting bit by mosquitoes every single day. It'll start to get annoying and you'll really start to feel the pain. Microaggressions are just like this. In the beginning, they might sound innocent, but if each time you meet someone new, they ask you if you're born in a different country or what your first language is, you'll definitely start to think that the first thing people notice about you is how foreign you may seem. As the daughter of 2 immigrant parents, and as someone who may not exactly fit the perfect white mold of our community, I've experienced microaggressions for a while. I remember once in 5th grade, a friend brought up that I speak Armenian, and the rest of my table suddenly froze and stared at me with extreme astonishment. It frustrates me that I had to feel and started asking me questions in tones as if I were some rare species they've never heard about. It frustrates me that I had to feel this at such a young age, but to this day, I vividly remember a huge wave of embarrassment and guilt take over. And for the first time, I felt ashamed to be perceived as different, ashamed of who I was. As an effect of comments like these, I did what many children of immigrants do. I stopped bringing traditional foods to lunch, became self-conscious of my accent, and overall avoided bringing up my ethnicity in conversations. These minor actions are all examples of assimilation, which comes from a Latin word meaning to make similar, and it's an act of sacrificing your cultural identity to fit into the surrounding, dominating culture. But equity is when we accept those around us for who they are, and when we all feel like we can be ourselves and belong without having to change. It's when we celebrate, appreciate, and embrace each other's differences, rather than pointing them out in a demeaning or alienating manner. So, to avoid making people feel like they need to change who they are to fit in, we should all be cognizant of microaggressions. So, next time you make comments regarding someone's differences, ask yourself if you're asking it in a willingness to connect, or if it could be felt as you just pointing out how foreign you find someone. In addition, we who identify outside of our community's predominant culture must share our stories, because often microaggressions rarely come from malice, and instead from misunderstanding. Lastly, I'd like to add that many things have changed for me. I've learned the difference between belonging and fitting in. Instead of changing myself to be accepted as one of my peers or simply fitting in, I've worked to educate those around me to accept me as I am. That's how I fought to be treated equitably. My peers didn't dislike me for being different. They just didn't understand what effects these comments or microaggressions could have. And I'm happy to say that I've reached this place by surrounding myself with people who genuinely listen to me and who empower me to delve deeper into my true identity. Now, I take every opportunity I can to connect and learn more about my heritage and ethnic roots. So, if we can all shift our mindsets to seeing the beauty in diverse backgrounds, as a community, we'll create a more accepting and open environment where everyone will not only think, but know that they belong just as they are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes our speeches for today, so let's give all of the students a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Those were amazing. I am feeling so inspired. And now that the judges are going to deliberate, I would like you as the audience, for the next 5 to 10 minutes, turn to somebody in front of or behind you or next to you and just share a little bit about what resonated with you from those speeches. And then we'll reconvene in a couple of minutes and we will announce the winners. Thank you. Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for, we are ready to announce the winners of the speech competition. I want to tell you all that you did amazing. This was a very hard decision for the judges, but again, everybody is walking away with a very well-deserved scholarship today. So Allie will begin with the second place winners.
And you heard that right. We could not decide on second place. So it was a tie, so we have 2 second place winners. So our first second place winner, I would like to announce Al Sutherland. And you can come up, and Danielle D. You can come up. Congratulations. Great job. We're so proud.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And this is for you. And without further ado, I will announce our first place winner. And so, Varun, come on up here.
Well done. Great job.
And so all of you are winners. You all walk out of here with a scholarship. This was not an easy decision by any means. So I'd like all of you to come up here and present you all with your scholarship.
You like graduation? Well done. Yeah. Well done. Well done. Thank you. Great job. Well done. Well done. Try. You want to move this? You want this podium moved? Yeah.
everybody for attending. We're so proud of all you students. If you would like to join the Carlsbad Equality Coalition, find us on Instagram at Carlsbad Equality Coalition, or carlsbadequalitycoalition.com is our website. We hold monthly meetings, and we are committed to equity and justice in Carlsbad, and that requires all of us. So thank you so much for being here. It was an honor to meet all of the judges and be here at Reverend Shockley's church. Thank you so much. And thank you to our president, Allie, the birthday girl. Thank you so much for organizing this. And thank you to all of you for attending. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you can stay and mingle and meet some of the students and meet the judges.
And we have
Thank you all for having me here at Pilgrim. It was a wonderful competition. It's just what an amazing sample of the future of America. I mean, the ideas and concepts that came out of this group were just awe-inspiring. And as an activist, a person who works on the ground every day doing this work, it is surprising that we can have a group of people all in one place. I'm so happy to see all in one place that have that same passion for this work. And I feel that I can relax now and feel that when my time is up, that people will take my spot who will advance this process even more and further. You know, I appreciate and I learned something from each one of your perspectives. And as someone said earlier, there are no losers. Everyone was a winner that came up to this stage. And I wish I could just reach out and hug you all simultaneously. But thank you for your time and what you've done. And you really put some things on my mind that I will implement as I'm out doing my speeches and talks. Thank you so much.
Well, I just want to say, as pastor of the Pilgrim United Church of Christ, we are honored to host this inaugural speech contest for CEC on the subject of what does justice and equity mean to me. I think it's a great invitation for all of us to think about that same subject, and I really appreciate each of you who put in the time and the effort to produce your speeches today and to deliver them with such passion and intelligence. I was enhanced by everyone's speech, and just really thrilled, as Yusef mentioned, to see the young people of our future. And I think we do have to give special commendation to our 8th grader. Wonderful, wonderful. And so I'm going to give CEC an open invitation for this competition to be held right here at Pilgrim every year. And we're going to do our best to fill this sanctuary with people. I don't know if it's a pandemic or whatever people are doing today, but this place should have been full. I really do hope we have a great audience online and that we can take these speeches and continue to make them available online and through other venues. So thank you all very much for being here this afternoon. And our worship here at Pilgrim United Church of Christ is at 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings, if you are so inclined. But we're just glad to host this competition because we are a social justice church, just in case people wanted to know. So thank you, and thank you to our hosts and the fine leadership of the CEC. Thank you. And there are refreshments in the narthex. Yes, yes.